Ask your casual Star Wars fan to name their favourite Sith Lord, and they're more than likely going to say something like Darth Vader, or maybe Darth Maul. But one dark side user that gets criminally overlooked is the ominous and quite frankly terrifying looking Darth Revan from the Knight of the Old Republic games. Now yes, we realise that Knights of the Old Republic, and by extension Darth Revan himself, aren't part of the official Star Wars canon, but that's not stopped fans from consistent and passionately clamouring to get to see more of one of the most complex and intriguing Star Wars characters out there. But what do we know of Darth Revan? Well, let's start at the very beginning, because if the Sound of Music taught us anything, it's that the beginning is a very good place to start. Oh, and strap in, because it's quite the tale. Revan was born around 3,994 years before the Battle of Yavin, somewhere in the Outer Rim territories, and not long after birth was identified as Force sensitive and taken into the Jedi Order to be raised as a Jedi. Over the course of his youth, he trained under several different masters, but as he grew and matured into a young man, he became friends with another young Jedi called Alec, and the two became fairly vocal about the Jedi's unwillingness to intervene in the Mandalorian wars that were raging between rival clans. The pair soon grew to resent this inactivity and eventually decided that enough was enough and that they had to go against the Jedi Council's wishes and help out the besieged and suffering Mandalorian people. Taking the mask of a fallen Mandalorian warrior, Revan followed Alec and headed off to join the Republic military's fight, quickly being appointed Supreme Commander of the assault. The many battles were brutal and there were countless casualties on both sides, but before too long, Revan came face to face with Mandalore the Ultimate, the ruler of Mandalore. A fierce fight ensued, but Revan came out victorious, defeating the tyrannical leader during the Battle of Malachor V, and thus bringing the Mandalorian wars to a close. But Revan and Alec, now known as Malak, discovered a trail of Sith influence that led them to the mysterious unknown regions, and ultimately to a reconstituted Sith Empire that were in hiding and waiting. With their minds ravaged by war, power, and doubt in the Jedi, Revan and Malak were turned to the dark side of the Force by the Sith Emperor. He took mental control of them and returned them to the Republic as double agents, tasked with doing dark deeds in the name of the burgeoning secret Sith Empire. But Darth Revan's mind was not so easily controlled, and he and Darth Malak, who was now his Sith apprentice, eventually broke free of the hold that the Dark Lord had over them, soon establishing an empire of their very own, separate from both the ancient Sith Empire and Republic. At the heart of this new empire was an ancient space station known as the Star Forge, from which Revan and Malak grew their forces, constructing weapons and a fleet with which they could attack the Republic. This soon became the conflict known as the Jedi Civil War. Unfortunately, as the conflict started to drag on, Revan was, inevitably, betrayed by Malak, as is the Sith way. This treachery led to Revan being captured by Jedi Knight Bastila Shan. During his time in the captivity of Shan, Revan formed a strong force bond with her, allowing for his mind to be wiped by him to essentially be restored to factory settings. This renewed Revan was given the role of a Republic soldier by the Jedi Council and posted aboard the Ender Spear, one of the most prestigious and well-armoured ships in the Republic's fleet. Enter Revan's old Sith apprentice, Darth Malak. He attacked the Ender Spear in an unsuccessful attempt to capture Bastila Shan. However, Revan and a small group made their escape and found themselves on the planet of Dantooine. This is where Revan was at long last retrained as a Jedi Padawan. As he learned, grew, and rediscovered his affinity for the Force under Shan's careful tutorage, the pair became close, once again forming a strong bond. But Malak didn't give up so easily, and while Revan was on a mission to locate the star maps that would lead the way to the Star Forge, he captured the group, forcing Revan to face the truth of who he was before his mind was wiped, and ultimately turning Bastila Shan to the dark side. But Revan would not be beaten so easily, making a final stand against his old friend Malak. The pair viciously battled, and Revan once again emerged victorious. This defeat, combined with Revan's undying love for Shan, brought the Jedi Knight back to the light side of the Force. The pair were married and lived together in peace and happiness. Ah, how sweet. And that's where Revan's story ends. Or is it? You see, after several years of marital bliss, Revan started to be haunted by strange and obscure memories, his own memories, from his time before the mind wipe. This drove him to leave the now pregnant Bastila Shan and head off into the unknown regions once again to see if he can make sense of what he was seeing in his head. He was soon captured by the ancient Sith Empire and imprisoned for 3 years, until a lieutenant named Mitra Sirik and disillusioned Sith Lord Scourge helped him break free. Unfortunately, the Sith Emperor foresaw this move and captured the trio, imprisoning Revan once again, this time for 300 years. He was tortured, pushed to the edge of death, and broken over and over again while in captivity. He had to live with the knowledge that his wife and child had lived their lives without him and were now long dead. But even after all this anguish and hurt, he did not fully reject the light. When the Republic finally made a move and attacked the base where Revan was being held, he at long last gained his freedom. All's well that ends well, right? Well, unfortunately, Revan was killed by an Imperial strike team as he tried to construct a droid army that could defeat the Empire. And so ends the physical life of Revan. He lived a long and tough life, full of twists and turns that would break even the strongest of minds and most steely of wills. He'd been raised a Jedi, became a Sith, and returned to the Jedi Order once again. He'd fought in various wars and spent an incredible amount of time in captivity. He had suffered loss and basked in the glory of love. But this is not where the story of Revan ends. You see, during his 300 years of captivity, Revan's mind had been splintered so much that even after physical death, this was not the end. While a part of his mind tried to become one with the Force, the rest of him clung on to the remnants of life, keeping him going through sheer will. Only by once again fully embracing the dark was he able to return to some sort of physical form. His mind bent on destroying the Sith Emperor that had made him what he had become. Revan formed the eponymous Order of Revan. Mad with power and a lust for revenge and bloodshed, he was ready to mount his final stand. However, both the Republic and Empire recognized the unimaginable threat that Revan and his Order posed and worked together to stop him once and for all. But they had a secret weapon on their side, Revan himself, or rather that one glimmer of good that was still left in Revan. With his light side unable to pass on, it assisted in the defeat of the Dark Revan, culminating in the two halves merging and Revan finally being able to become whole and die for real. His final death came in the year 3637 BBY, meaning that he lived until the age of 357. Not bad for a human, all things considered. Incredible as this may seem though, Revan was still not done. The Sith Emperor and his cult of followers were the reason that Revan was so broken and damaged, and had been through so many trials and tribulations throughout his long life. So some long overdue payback was needed. As one final act, Revan's now fully healed spirit helped defeat the Sith Emperor once and for all, destroying him and wiping out his evil order. This served as a kind of catharsis for the lifetime of torture that Revan had endured, and once the task was complete, Revan was finally able to truly become one with the Force, rejoining his true love Bastila Shan in the great beyond. His legacy, however, was not a good one. He would be idolized by subsequent Sith Lords, and whispers of his mighty power became twisted and warped over time, until just a whisper of the name Revan would send shivers down the spine. He would even become the namesake of Emperor Palpatine's Sith Eternal Army's 3rd Legion on Exegol, 34 years after the Battle of Yavin, during the war between the First Order and the Resistance. So as far as Star Wars characters go, Revan had a tough time. Yes, we've totally streamlined this tale and omitted bits and pieces here and there, but you get the broad strokes of his life and times, and he had it rough. Unlike many stories set in the Star Wars universe, Revan's story was not one of happiness and hope, and while there was a certain amount of redemption in the end, his entire legacy was tainted over the years. Can you see why we said he was such a complex character now? By the way, if you want to experience the entirety of Revan's story, why not play through Knights of the Old Republic and its sequel, Knights of the Old Republic 2? With a remake in the works, now's as good a time as any to dive into the original source material. So let's take a step out of the universe for a while and discuss some of the behind-the-scene tidbits. As we mentioned, Revan was introduced in the Knights of the Old Republic video game that was released in 2003. It was here that he was cemented into the hearts of Star Wars fans around the world. As well as the game's 2004 sequel, he also featured prominently in a book called The Old Republic, Revan, as well as other media that tied into the video games. While he is not considered to be a completely canon character in the current Star Wars universe, there were plans for him to appear in the very much canon Star Wars The Clone Wars TV show. The idea was floated that he could appear in Season 3 episode Ghosts of Mortis. Speaking about the episode, show creator Dave Filoni said, "One of the very interesting things about the final episode of Mortis that I know fans would have found very interesting was that George was looking for two ancient Sith Lords that could bring some meaning that would be kind of like an uber-evil influence guiding the sun, and that was Darth Bane and Darth Revan, both of who existed in the EU. However, the scene was removed late in production due to it conflicting with George Lucas's views on the Force and how the Force worked. Sith could not exist beyond death, only Jedi. Beyond that, the only other canon mention of Revan is, as we previously mentioned, that one of Emperor Palpatine's Sith Eternal Legions was named after him, though this could be considered more of an Easter egg for fans of the video game. Still, Revan's name is not mentioned at all on screen in the current saga, whether it's in reference to the character or the Sith Eternal Legion. And that's the lie of the land at the moment regarding Revan. Would you like to see him return in the current Star Wars canon? Do you think he'd be a worthy character to work into stories set in the continuity of the Star Wars saga? And what medium do you think that should be? A movie, a TV show, books, or a video game? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And until next time, may the Force be with you.